California boasts some of the most incredible and diverse scenery that is out there. And it's hard to feel anything but awe in this natural beauty. Rolling hills covered in lush, green vegetation, and the bright, colorful flowers that line the bike paths, just waiting to be explored and taken in. And there is no better way than by touring aboard two wheels. As most stories go, there was a wild idea thrown around.
So we committed to going to do the Belgian Waffle Ride in San Diego down there, and then we're going to do Levi's Grand Fondo. I'm like, well, if we're going to drive up the whole coast, may as well have you guys ride the weekend between to make up for our coast ride we missed.
Yeah, and easy for you to say because you were driving, right?
Easy enough, yeah. Not on a bike right now, so knew I was going to be the driver, but figured you guys would take to it pretty easily after a little bit of convincing.
In reality, not much convincing was needed. The performance bicycle crew, consisting of Ryan Oakes, a drop bar fanatic with a craving for large, epic days on two wheels. Nick Wallace, a Strava KOM assassin, hailing from the Santa Cruz Mountains. Jack Johnson, the idea maker and former collegiate runner who finally came around and picked up cycling. And myself, Jeffrey Morton, a daredevil upon two wheels, whether that be over dirt, gravel, or tarmac. We all set out to traverse from the Belgian Waffle Ride in San Marcos, California, all the way up to the Sea Otter Classic in Monterey. Approximately 500 miles of rolling to hilly terrain, covering these incredible scenic areas. But first thing first, BWR had to be conquered. And aboard the Richie Tandem. Now, not only did we survive BWR, we won the tandem race. But that's a story for a whole nother video, which you can actually check out on our channel.
How were you feeling Monday morning rolling into it all?
Monday morning was like kind of like being run over by a truck already to start out with. I was pretty tired. The night before in BWR, I'd ended the day with a really upset stomach, so some of the nutrition at the end of the day to like get started for the tour wasn't going great already. So I woke up feeling tired from BWR. Then at least getting on the bike felt really good because we'd been on the tandem before, and hopping on a real bike where I wasn't like having to share controls with anyone else, and it was like light and nimble and turned when I wanted it to. That felt really good.
When Monday morning came around, I felt, I'm not going to say amazing, and that sounds a little bit funny because I didn't have to do 9 hours on the bike like you guys that rode the tandem. But we'd been doing a decent amount of driving, and Jack and I followed as much as we could around the BWR course on Sunday. So we spent a lot of hours in the car, a lot of looking at maps, trying to figure out ways to cut you guys off and, you know, checking out how you were doing, do a little recording, take some pictures and videos, and, you know, mostly just watch you guys suffer, really.
We just left the house. Today was supposed to be all flat, and somehow we are already climbing. Not off to a great start. Up front here did not ride yesterday, so of course he's going to be attacking all day long. Nothing but beautiful views for the day. Actually, probably for the entire week. So we had a nice little coffee stop in Oceanside, and now we are going to load the bikes up on the van to get through Camp Pendleton.
So that was probably the trickiest part of the route to figure out, was going through the Marine military base. They're just north of Oceanside in San Diego County. There are passes you can get to go through for the day, but their visitor center was mysteriously closed for an undisclosed amount of time.
Since we had the ability to put our bikes in the car and have Jack drive us, we decided to skip on about a 5-mile section of riding on the side of Highway 5, because that not only did it sound dangerous, it just sounded really unpleasant.
So we're back in Camp Pendleton. Took off about 6 miles of our ride in the car, but now we are going to be able to ride on some roads that are closed to vehicles, so it'll be smooth sailing.
Bike path riding was nice because we were removed from the traffic, from the cars, but we had the problem where the bike path going was really slow, so we just would not be able to travel very fast at times. They had speed limits that were kind of not, I mean, we weren't going the speed limit, but the speed limits were not favorable, and you often had to slow down just to avoid like conflicts with pedestrians. So that made it so we couldn't really cruise as fast as we would have liked to.
After the multiple hours of suffering yesterday at the tail end of BWR, it sure is nice to be able to recover along the coastline.
Felt like a recovery day. We spent a lot of time riding down on the beach, riding kind of on bike paths where it was relatively slow, so that was really what I needed after doing Belgian Waffle Ride, was to have that day where it was easy, short mileage. I think we only did like 70 miles or so, something like that. It was kept it really mellow.
But once we got to the beaches and we were riding literally on paved bike paths on the beach, it was kind of a nice relief from like typical riding where you kind of have this motivation. I gotta go, I gotta, set this tempo, we gotta get it done. It was a shorter day, we had plenty of daylight, and it was just kind of like we took on that beach vibe and just pedaled.
I actually felt better at the end of day one than I felt at the end of Belgian Waffle Ride. So it definitely like acted as a recovery day. My metabolism had kicked up by then. I was ready to have dinner. I think we had a couple dinners that night, and that was really good.
We are in Long Beach. We're in the hotel room. Time to rest up, time to eat, time to recover. We'll catch you again tomorrow. All right, so morning of day 2. I can already tell I'm slowly more and more tired in the morning. Just probably not sleeping as well, not enough recovery. We're gonna chug along, I think about 90 miles on tap today. We are doing some climbing though, just cause it's a little bit boring doing flats all day. So let's go eat some food. Pro tip, always make sure your hotel has continental breakfast.
There's something to be said for having hot breakfast prepared, ready to go, and kind of a all-you-can-eat situation, because in these kind of trips, you just have to take on as many calories as you can. You're going to be in deficit the whole time. So powdered eggs and the juice machine that's mostly corn syrup, and just had all of it. Yeah.
Should be a nice day today, though. We're going to start the day. First half of the day, we'll be rolling along the coast. We're going to go through some nice beaches down here in LA, some really nice neighborhoods, just as we did yesterday. And then we're going to head up into the mountains just before we hit Malibu, try and get off the flats for a little bit. Should be an enjoyable day. With the climbing comes descending. So I'm looking forward to it. It's about 9:30, a little bit later than kind of wanted to roll, but we're getting on the road. Got 6+ hours today, potentially. Breakfast was killer. Like one of the best hotel breakfasts I've ever had. What'd you end up eating, Ryan?
I went for the biscuits and gravy, and then the waffle.
Yeah. I put some chocolate chips and walnuts in the waffle. So good. So we're about 40 minutes in and roughly 10 miles. It's pretty crazy how quick you can go from the dense city to some like lush green trees. Nice little area.
Passing through Long Beach was very industrial and really not the most enjoyable place to be riding. A lot of semi-trucks coming through there, rough road, holes, and all kinds of debris inside of in the side of the shoulder where we were. It was a section to be tolerated because there weren't any better routes, but it wasn't something that any of us really liked.
After a nice little jaunt through some rolling hills, we are back along the coast. Oh, got some good views ahead. Well, we were cruising along the beach on the bike path, and now we have entered a little pier, I guess, and it is no riding zone. So we have a bike path, but we're supposed to walk. Just another one of those things that's going to extend our day when we're not riding. Let's get moving.
The Pacific Coast Highway and getting off of one. Sections of it are awesome to ride. Other sections are just highway, and we've been on a decent amount of the highway kind of stuff that day, so it was really nice to just not have to be kind of anxious about cars behind you and getting past at really high rates of speed.
So we have reached Malibu and are about to take our lunch stop. Our guardian angel Jack over here prepared sandwiches, so let's eat. Now we got some smart thinking over here. What's going on?
Well, I didn't want to have to hold the bagel sandwich and my beer, so just let the bagel be held by my beer.
Bagel on a bottle. Get a little bit of peanut butter, a little bit of jelly, and some beer. That's ideal.
I was totally hungry there, and so eating 2 sandwiches right there, right before we hit the climb, was probably a little more than I should have. But at the same time, I just wanted to take in the calories. Felt really good to go head uphill. We had been doing a lot of flat riding, and it got to be a little boring. There was a lot of traffic, so going up Latigo Canyon, you had this like quiet road where all of a sudden, like, there were probably only like 3 or 4 cars we saw up there the whole time. The road surface was perfect, and it just really was a nice change for the day.
Yeah, that day I still felt pretty good. You know, the fatigue hadn't really started to accumulate too much for me. I think the mellow pace on the beach that morning kind of meant that we'd had a long day out just because we couldn't go very fast, but we hadn't had to work really, really hard. We got awesome climbing and descending in. We sort of dropped into some farmland, right, on the backside, and it's super familiar for me, like here again in Chico, we have tons of that. So I knew that the guys, like, we had a big trip ahead yet, and obviously both Jeff and Nick were pretty in the hole from the Sunday ride doing the big miles, so I kind of put it upon myself to make sure I tried to take as much wind as possible and help get us home.
First signs of fatigue were there, because that was the first bigger day of the ride. Got some good climbing in, and then it's a pretty grueling headwind section, the flats rolling home from out of the mountains there. So understandably getting tired after that's day 3 of big riding, so I think that's when you guys really started to go into the hole.
Started to hurt a little later on that day. As we neared kind of the end of the day, I think that the fatigue from Belgian Waffle Ride started to catch up to me a little, and we hit some sections with headwind, and the legs were starting to complain about it a bit. I don't think I fully cramped up, but definitely I was struggling a little there. I'm not always the best at sleeping in hotels, but on this trip it was not a problem at all. I was just like, got to the end of the day, we'd go get some food, get back to the hotel, and as soon as possible we were pretty much going to sleep to try and get as much time in the bed as we could.
All right, Tuesday morning, started day 3, just woke up, 7 a.m. 7 a.m. wake-ups aren't too bad, except for when you feel like you need 12 hours of sleep. That's when they're pretty brutal. Heading to hotel breakfast, gonna try and eat 5,000 calories before we head out. Yeah, let's do it. All kitted up, got that sunscreen applied. It's gonna be a warm one today. Should be in at least approaching the 70s. It's been kind of chilly the last couple days on the coast, but we're gonna head up to Santa Barbara. From Santa Barbara, we'll be heading into the hills and then stopping, I believe, in Santa Maria this evening. 110 miles on tap, just under 6K of climbing.
I was still feeling pretty good. I knew, again, you guys were just deeper in the hole than me, and I figured we'd find kind of this equalization point at some point in the tour where maybe I'd done enough work early on and you guys had saved enough matches that we'd all kind of be on the same plane. So I was just trying to make sure I was doing my fair share. And also, like, at that point I was getting, to be honest, you know, it was beautiful being on the beaches, but I was getting kind of sick of riding the beach bike paths because they have the speed limit, and it was really easy to get out there and be like, cool, we're gonna pedal 12 miles an hour. And with a similar amount of effort, we could be going so much faster. So it was one of those things of like, today's a long day. I don't want to be out here for like total time of 9 hours. I want to make sure we get in a reasonable hour. So it's kind of like, hey, let's cruise, you know, get it going, get it done.
After a few hours of cruising today, we have landed ourselves in beautiful Santa Barbara. Got all these palm trees lining the beach, cruising. Time to go find some coffee.
We were cruising out of town. We had a small rock on the road that it wasn't even a large rock, just kind of came up and slashed my sidewall, and it was a pretty frustrating situation overall because it became actually quite apparent after staring at it for a few minutes that it was going to be impossible for us to fix with what we had on our person. Jack was already well ahead of us, long gone, so we were kind of on our own at that point. Fortunately, we were still in town, but we actually had a valve, a tubeless valve snap off. It was corroded and it broke, off entirely. I've had plenty of times that the valve core will break from, using your pump on it. This was the entire valve just snapped, which was kind of a new experience. And in doing so, it frayed all the threads, so we couldn't undo the valve nut, so it was stuck on, so we couldn't even put a tube in. So fortunately, Nick was smart and he found a bike shop close by in walking distance, walked to the bike shop, got it fixed. But I mean, the probably 15-20 minutes of trying to fix it, a few minutes walking to the bike shop, explaining to the bike shop what needed to be done, having them help us out, then fixing the flat, booting it and getting it going. I mean, an hour, of something that should have been a quick fix.
Going out of Santa Barbara, we decided to go up to climb out of there on, I think it was Old San Marcos Road, which was really nice climb, pretty steep though at places and very hot and sunny, but seemed like a better option than going either north up 101 or going across like the main highway there. It was nice to have a road that avoided some of the worst traffic.
Just made it to the top of the climb outside of Santa Barbara. Now we get to descend down to our lunch spot. So we're descending down to the lunch spot. I was leading, Ryan flatted. So now we are climbing back up, make sure he's got all the stuff. He flatted earlier, so he might need a tube.
We were on the world's smoothest, cleanest piece of asphalt descending down. It was closed to traffic, so I was using the center of the lane going down the thing. And as we were there's some tight bends and a decent amount of speed, and as we were laying into a turn, I just felt my kind of rear end shift around, and like, what is that? And started doing the kind of bounce up and down check. Am I making this up? Is it just me? And I was pretty confident it was going flat, and then realized the room was bottoming out. I'm trying to yell up to Nick, because you guys are screaming on ahead and join the descent, and I'm about to, have to pull over and fix it flat. So pulled over, and it was on the same tire, but it wasn't related to the slash I had previously. It was actually just a puncture. Something had come out and punctured the tube I had in there at that point.
By the time we got to the lake, I was already feeling a little tired. We had already done some big climbing, and I was hungry. So yeah, I think once again ate like peanut butter and jelly sandwich, got some ice cream, got a soda. I feel like I was just pretty hungry at that point, ready to eat just about everything.
After a nice long lunch stop, we're back on the road, heading to Santa Maria, and we got pretty much either a block headwind or a cross headwind the whole way. So this next 30 miles about is gonna be, how do you put it, not so pleasant.
I took to the front right away just because it's like, this is my bad for these flats, my mechanical. Let's see if we can just get some tempo going, trying to flush out the lunch legs after lunch. And it wasn't long before I'd kind of used most of my matches, and I think we were all relying on you to tow us the rest of the way pretty much. We realized, I don't know, what were we, halfway through the day in mileage, and that was kind of, for me, like a, red alert. I had the alarm bells going off of like, we're well into the afternoon and we've only done half of the day's miles, and we've been out here so long already. We need to really like scramble and get this thing done, or we're gonna find ourselves out after dark.
We are down in the valley, powering the final 10 to 15 miles right now, working our way back.
It started to really hurt, especially when we hit any kind of false flat or climb, and then anytime there was a crosswind as well, because I wasn't able to get a draft. And like, Jeff was feeling really good. You were like just totally crushing the flats, and had to kind of yell up to Jeff a couple times and be like, we gotta back off a little bit because it was totally hurting me and I was getting dropped.
It was. It may have been downhill on paper, but you could have convinced me otherwise.
I think as far as the pace goes, my like comfortable pace for all day might have been just maybe like 1 or 2 miles per hour slower. There's still that like, I think all of us kind of agreed that we all have this mentality where the faster you go, the sooner you're done. So that I think we all kind of agree on, and we're willing to suffer a little bit for that.
We made it to Santa Maria. That was a hard one. The whole final 20 miles, either block headwind or crosswind. It was quite brutal. But we made it. End of day 3. Time to fuel up, go get a bunch of food. I think we're gonna eat 2 dinners tonight. And then get some sleep, wake up and do the same thing tomorrow. All right, dinner number 1 down. Chick-fil-A, 2 chicken sandwiches. Sandwiches, Sandos, 12-piece nuggets, fries, brownie. Time for dinner number 2. We have Jack going in and grabbing our Chipotle kids meals. $5. That's the hack. All right, good morning. Day 4. We are riding from Santa Maria to King City. Very small, but another 120 mile day. So can't take it lightly. I feel pretty good. Got a couple of extra hours of sleep last night. So time to get some breakfast, fuel up for the ride. Another hotel breakfast down the hole. Sausage, eggs, build your own waffles. Boy, waffles are good. I don't think I'm gonna eat them for another month after this trip though. But got a little stinky bun thing for the road. So ride food, gonna need a lot of that.
I think that was maybe the first night after day 3 where we had a pretty serious discussion about, yesterday took longer than it should have. And a lot of the challenge was because it's typically a little more calm in the morning and much more windy in the afternoon, and we were out way deep into the afternoon. So we kind of had this idea of let's all agree to like, let's get up a little bit earlier, let's try and beat some of the wind. And I remember like the alarm going off, just kind of throwing some stuff on, walking over to the Best Western hotel lobby for some breakfast, and setting foot outside immediately into a really strong wind at like 7 in the morning and thinking, yeah, we didn't beat the wind at all. This is gonna suck.
Time to roll out. 8:30 just about. 120 miles ahead. So hunker down, get it done. How you feeling, Nick? Feeling pretty good? Sweet. Ryan, how are you feeling? Feel terrible. All right, excellent for a nice 8-hour day.
Yeah, rolling out and like making a point to get an early start and seeing that wind was a little demoralizing, especially since it was gonna be headwind for most of the day.
If there is a town limit, a city limit, a county limit sign, I'm used to looking around and sprinting for it and jumping for it. And I don't see any reason a tour, you know, and a long trip like this should be any exception to that. So we had quite a bit of fun. Especially, I think what really added to that fun was we were in unknown environment. So riding in your own backyard, you kind of start to know where those sprint points are, and you know kind of what your timing is. When you go on this stuff, you know, you maybe know the town's coming up, you know the clues, the speed limit signs change, and you can start to see more traffic, more buildings, but you don't know where that sprint point's going to be.
I may have been hurting on the day and didn't have much energy, but sometimes the drive to just go for those city limit sprints was a good way to kind of shake myself out of the monotony for a minute.
I think the whole crew got on board with it. We're frustrated when Nick would see a sign nobody else did, or we'd have some pretty intense battles for some of these silly little towns along the coast.
So we are about an hour and a half in, 29.8 miles. We've been cruising it, trying to get it done, put in the work early, enjoy it later. Got coffee stop in the next 5-ish miles, load up on caffeine, some pastries, and then keep on rolling.
After taking a coffee shop in San Luis Obispo, we rolled up a gravel road out of there, and I flatted on a rock. It was something that probably usually would not have given me a flat tire, but annoyingly it was a big sidewall gash, and that created some issues, and we took quite a while trying to fix it, and then eventually ended up not being able to plug it and having to put a tube in, which really kind of set us back probably over half an hour on the day, just trying to repair the tube and stopping 2 or 3 times to try and do that. Do I even know how a tube tire is supposed to feel anymore?
Nick had the realization hey, the road up here, we're seeing signs, it's gonna be out. Should we turn around? I think there's a go around, or should we continue on? Let's just go look at it and see. And we continued on. I mean, the road literally went to the edge, and then it just sheer cliffed off, 10 feet down into a river. The whole bridge road was completely gone. And there was about 10 seconds of debating, do we turn around? But I think I already had my shoes off and bike on my shoulder. I'm walking across, I'm not going backtracking.
Just loaded up on lunch in Paso Robles. Had a nice chicken pesto wrap. Now we are back on the road. Got another 60-ish miles ahead, and then we get to our destination in King City. Looking forward to getting this knocked out. Not too much support this next 60 miles, pretty barren. So we are gonna probably meet up with our driver Jack in a couple hours to possibly refuel.
I think we had to ride 101 for a while that day. And there's whatever the base was, is that Richardson or something? One of the military bases was right there. Past a few military bases, one of the bases, we had to exit near there, and that was looking forward to getting off the highway. And we had a city limit sprint right there, and in this case a county limit sprint, and we all kind of stood up and went for it, exiting the highway, and it was exciting to see Monterey County, our destination's Monterey, Monterey's in Monterey County. Really, really cool. But it was like someone drew a line right there. The road went from pretty good to maybe some of the worst roads you could ride or would want to ride on a road bike. Just chip seal and pothole and cracked and just incredibly poor road surface. And it was just like that the rest of the day. It never improved.
We're down in the valley approaching King City. Got about 22 miles to go. Making good headway.
And at one point, I think after meeting up with him, we're all right, we've got one more stop and we're gonna meet you there. And I was keeping a decent eye on my phone and saw a text come through from him that said, hey, I just got to this town that we were planning on going to this convenience store, and it's a ghost town.
Ryan sent the text for a few special requests and some micheladas. Had to let him know that the place I was at was all closed. But there was a spot about 5 miles back from where I was. That's a little similar type of convenience store that I figured would probably have them.
flips around, comes flying past us the wrong direction, stops off at the store, and we're all kind of fingers crossed as to whether they're even going to have him there. And then he catches back up to us and pulls over, and he just pulls out the grocery bag, and he's got 4 of them. And it's like, oh, dude. And that thing, like, it's the life water, just revitalized me for that last bit of the day.
Right, Michelada's down the hatch. Time to knock out the final 20. Woo.
Pretty much downhill into town. We got this big steep descent that, took us up easily at 40, 50 miles an hour. But once that descent ran out at the bottom, it was still like this false flat downhill into town, and the wind must have been blowing blockhead at like 30 miles an hour. And I remember like looking down thinking, I'm doing about 300 watts, sitting on Jeff's wheel in this headwind, and we are going 15 miles an hour. It was, that was like maybe the hardest part of the entire tour, I think.
At that point, coming into King City, I had already like spent every match I had, and we turned onto this little bike path, and I think the winter storms had like flooded over it, and it was covered in sand. And I've just like, you guys powered through it. You still had a little bit of power left in your legs, and you're able to kind of like spin that high cadence, get through the sand. I started going through it. It was like, oh, I'm not making it anywhere. So it ended up being a good amount of walking through sand to end the day, which was a tough way to do it.
Tell everyone at home how you're feeling.
I think I had like some leftover food from earlier in the day. I ate that and took a shower and fell asleep. I didn't even make it to go join you guys for dinner that night. I was totally cracked.
Getting over the midway hump of the tour and knowing like, hey, tomorrow's the last day. There's sort of this light at the end of the tunnel, finishing wind kind of a thing, where we've just had the hardest 2 days and then 4 days really accumulated together. But tomorrow's a shorter day, and tomorrow's the last day, and I'm kind of revitalizing, like feeling that too.
Time to eat up, recover. We got one more day on tap. Monterey, here we come.
It is morning on day 5. We are in King City. Limited options as far as hotels go in King City. So we do not have hotel breakfast this morning. But I stocked up at Denny's last night. Got some little strawberry pancake bites. Nick rolled over to BK, got a good old breakfast burrito. We're gonna eat up. I think we're actually gonna head to Safeway, get some more food. We're all really hungry at this point. But only 6 miles to go. So we'll be at Sea Otter the early afternoon and have reached our destination.
There's a few fast food chains. We'd eaten at Denny's the night before. So we kind of had this little debate. Are we going to Safeway and going to get, kind of deli sandwiches and maybe grab a, refrigerated coffee there? Or there's a Starbucks and we get Starbucks sandwiches and some coffee there. And we kind of settled on like, Starbucks is close by. Let's just do that real fast.
We're in King City. Stopped at Starbucks to caffeinate up before we head out. And what do you know? We happen to run into Tyler Pierce and Jeremiah Bishop over here. They're doing the exact same route as we are, riding from BWR all the way up to Sea Otter. I think we're gonna go ahead and cruise together for a little bit.
Like, pretty funny that they had the same idea as us to do the Belgian Waffle Ride and then commute, from the Belgian Waffle Ride to Sea Otter. And we just happened to land in the same city for the last day, which was just like a wild coincidence. We've been riding together for the last 4 days, and you kind of run out of conversation at some point. So a new person to talk to, and you kind of distract myself from what's going on. So it was great to get to chat with those guys and hang out and find out, their motivation for the trip. I thought it gave me definitely a second wind. Changed the dynamic, it changed the energy in the group. We were having that light at the end of the tunnel thing. We knew it was a shorter day. We knew, Monterey is just a stone's throw away from where we were. To add in 2 more bodies that were able bodies capable of pedaling was kind of nice. Like we didn't have as big a day on deck, so we didn't have to really put down hard pace to get it done.
Not only do we get a cruise, I know, simple 45 miles today, but we get a ride on the flats, and it's not too windy. That is such a good change of pace after the last couple days of foraging that headwind, the crosswinds. So good to simply cruise now.
I'm living my best life, sitting here, second wheel, just watching the scenery roll by like a conveyor belt.
So good. All right, let's keep knocking it out.
It's great. I have to say, like, rolling easy felt good. Felt like I could have rolled that pace all day and gone another 40 miles if we had to, but when we rolled up to Sea Otter and it was maybe like 60 miles into the day or so, I was happy to be done.
You kind of forget that, Laguna Seca, the raceway, it's up on this hill and then down in a bowl. And the hill that they take you up is super steep. So, I mean, it's really, really steep. And at the end of a long week, it's like not what you want to do. But like seeing the sign, it doesn't matter because you're done. Like you've accomplished it. You made it. Like you questioned, could I go from point A to point B in this span of time with this many miles per day? And you see that sign, you're like, oh, I did it. I did it. Like it's over. It was totally doable. It's a pretty cool feeling of just like sweet. Maybe the weirdest feeling is like, oh, I don't have to do this again tomorrow. That's probably the most bizarre thing on this kind of stuff. But yeah, seeing the sign was so awesome.
Kind of a sense of accomplishment. Like that was a big tour, and it was pretty cool to like roll up to this big cycling convention. Kind of had a really great energy around it.
A bunch of our team members were there at the event, running around doing their thing, and we'd all kind of coordinated to meet up when we got there. It was so fun to get to see people that you don't see that often, and just find out how they're doing, and they're asking the same about us, and we're sharing some of the kind of top of mind stories about like the antics of the trip and little nuanced things here or there, and just laughing, having a good time.
Endure had a caricature artist drawing portraits of people at their booth. So Jeffrey and I decided to sit down and have our caricatures drawn on the tandem. So we got this great souvenir art piece from that of us riding the tandem together, which was pretty cool.
The ultimate way maybe to cap it off. Yeah, I can't think of a better way to do it.
And with that, our journey comes to a close. 475 miles, traversing the Southern California beaches, coastal canyons, and the inland valleys. The memories and experiences from this journey will forever be remembered in our hearts. I know that this is just the beginning of our exploration of the world on two wheels. There are countless more roads to be discovered, more adventures to be had, and more stories to be told. So whether you're an avid cyclist or simply an admirer of nature's beauty, I encourage you to embark on your own journey, to chase the horizon, and to discover the wonders that await you. Because there's nothing quite like the feeling of freedom and discovery that comes with a bike ride through the stunning landscapes of California. Until our paths cross again, may your journeys be filled with breathtaking views, unforgettable moments, and the pure joy of riding. Keep pedaling, keep exploring, and keep embracing the beauty of the world around you.